Middle of a war meeting and that he couldn't talk for very long and had to go, but that actually he had no prior knowledge to the topic that Melania Trump, his wife, was going to be touching upon today.
Donald and Melania Trump aren't actually married. Sure, they have some sort of deal negotiated where she shows up at events and pretends to be the first lady, but they don't do anything together. They don't hang out together. They certainly don't talk to each other. The only thing that they share in common is their desire to hide the Epstein files, to cover up how complicit they are in the most infamous pedophilia ring in human history. That is what they tried to do together, and that is the only thing they do together. And that is exactly what they just got caught doing. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. And now it is particularly interesting given how hard Melania has worked to protect herself while throwing her husband under the bus. I want to talk about all of that, their relationship, why Melania really doesn't care about Donald, especially in this instance. But before we do, I want to start with some breaking news that Tara Palmieri, a journalist who has covered the Epstein files maybe better than any other, has just shared about how many files are still left, an important detail for Trump covering up Melania's dirty secret. That's where I want to start before we get into it all.
His pilot tells him, I got these cameras, they're so small, I can put them in the Kleenex boxes so no one can see them. And we know that they're sitting on 40 gigabytes of files.
Yeah.
What could 40 gigabytes be other than video, right?
So
and we've only seen 300 megabytes. We've seen 1% of the Epstein files.
Yeah, no, you can't say, there's no question. You can't say that we can't show you the information because it's a national security issue and then tell us it's not a national security issue. You can't have it both ways. Obviously, he was involved in national security. Obviously, he was intelligence. Anyone saying otherwise is a giant liar. And why they're lying is super interesting.
You know, this really reminds me of when Todd Blanche, after becoming the acting attorney general, went on Fox and was questioned by again. These are the hosts at the Fox propaganda outlet. They were questioning him over the Epstein files and said, okay, so are we going to get some new ones? Is more information going to come out? What else are we expected to see? And he essentially just said, well, nothing. It's all done. It's all good. We're finished. Please stop talking about it. And even they, again, these are paid liars, paid propagandists, were kind of just stunned and shocked and kept asking, no, there are more files, there's 3 million more files. Aren't we at least going to see those files? And he said no, because at least under this current administration, under this current Congress, we probably won't be seeing those files. Now, this is a reason that Democrats need to retake the House and the Senate, to bring some accountability and to make sure that the testimony from a Todd Blanche or a Howard Lutnick doesn't stay behind closed doors, that we get to see it. Yes, that is exactly what we need, because no one is going to share information about the Epstein files except for Melania, who had her own story she wanted to spin, which is very important to the dirty secret that Donald Trump just threw out. This clip right here, before we get to the article.
Just got off a very quick call before we went to air with President Trump, who said he was in the middle of a war meeting and that he couldn't talk for very long and had to go, but that actually he had no prior knowledge to the topic that Melania Trump, his wife, was going to be touching upon today in his statement. In her statement, he then repeated that he had to go, but before we hung up the phone, he said that she didn't know him, presumably referring.
That was the most revealing detail to me of that day. And I find it very interesting that Melania and Donald Trump both want to work to cover up the Epstein files, but really haven't done it together. Melania has talked about Epstein a lot. Not just that press conference, but she's made a lot of noise with lawsuits against Hunter Biden or against Michael Wolff, which is what we're going to talk about in a second. That has brought attention to the Epstein files. It hasn't distracted from them. You know, Donald Trump's efforts to hide and cover up, sure, they've brought more attention to it than anything else. But it was in the middle of a kind of dead period of the media talking about the Epstein files when Melania decided to bring this out. Why? Because she wanted to try to save her name, not like it was squeaky clean without actually caring about the implication that it would have on her husband, and the more attention it would bring to all of this. Well, attention has just been brought back to Melania's role in covering up the Epstein files and how she's trying to silence the press. Because Donald Trump and one of his judges that he appointed is making sure that Melania's dirty secrets can't get out there, and she can't face accountability. This is a devastating story. I want to talk about it, but then I also want to talk more broadly about the Epstein files. So do stick around, but let's take a look. Trump judge throws out Michael Wolff's bid to sue Melania Trump. The author Michael Wolff has had his lawsuit against Melania Trump thrown out by a federally appointed judge who, Donald Trump appointed him, of course. Wolff, the co-host of the hit Daily Beast podcast Inside Trump's Head, had sued the First Lady under laws designed to protect freedom of the press after she threatened to sue him for $1 billion. The best-selling Trump biographer filed a so-called anti-SLAPP lawsuit in October 2025 after receiving a legal threat from the First Lady over comments he made about her and Jeffrey Epstein. Melania threatened to sue him for allegations which included that she met Donald in Epstein's social circle. Something we know to be true, that Trump liked to have sex with his friend's wife, that he first slept with Melania on Epstein's private jet, and that she had played a part in her husband's handling of the Epstein files. Some of these allegations were contained in bombshell recordings of Epstein himself. Wolff said he had never accused the First Lady of involvement in Epstein's criminal conduct and argued that some of the remarks were constitutionally protected opinions. SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation, a legal expression for the powerful and rich using the courts to silence free speech. States including New York have introduced anti-SLAPP laws to protect free speech. Wolff said in his suit that the First Lady's lawyers threatening to sue him for $1 billion was subject to New York's anti-SLAPP laws. Wolff filed the suit to get a ruling that his statements, including those on Inside Trump's Head, were protected speech, which would have made Melania subject to damages if she had sued. He raised $800,000 in small dollar donations from backers to sue the wealthy Trump. Melania, in what is clearly a written statement from her lawyer, responded to the fact that the suit has been thrown out, writing, "First Lady Melania Trump is proud to continue standing up to and fighting against those who spread malicious and defamatory falsehoods as they desperately try to get undeserved attention and money for their unlawful conduct." It's funny, because undeserved attention and money sounds like Donald Trump's slush fund for the January 6th violent insurrectionists. So that's a little ironic there. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's happening. Once again, the free press is being silenced for talking about the Epstein files. People who are, and again, this is the nature of the profession, rather vindictive journalists, right? They're a little egotistical sometimes. Of course, I'm not saying journalists don't do great work, but I think we're all very aware of how personalized the media has become. This is true. This is just a fact. And for these people to constantly be having their work undermined and attacked and being sued and threatened, and maybe I'm not the biggest Michael Wolff fan. Maybe I like what he does. You could go either way there. He did spend a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein, I know, trying to gather information, but a little weird. We could say a little more than a little weird. Pretty uncomfortable. But journalists more broadly, you should want to stand up to this, right? You shouldn't want Donald Trump and Melania Trump to be able to silence you, because one of their appointed judges decides he'll throw out a case with real standing. This also brings attention back to the fact that Melania has been living in New York but only moved to Palm Beach to Mar-a-Lago to live in a literal ivory tower in a different bedroom from Trump. She lives in a different bedroom from Trump, so their marriage is falling apart. We know this very well, but she only did that to avoid this lawsuit, right? So Melania will only spend time with her husband when it is time spent protecting herself from the truth of the Epstein files. So that's a little insight into their marriage falling apart. Again, Melania only moved down to Palm Beach so that she could avoid this lawsuit, saying, well, it can't be brought in New York because I don't live in New York. She does live in New York. She has been living in New York. She's not at the White House. We know that for sure. That's just true. And she's only in Palm Beach to protect herself because these people are constantly running away from news which will continue to come out. And one person who's making sure is Khanna. That's where I want to end with an update that we need to hear about the latest Epstein testimony and how Donald Trump is attacking him in a very racist way. I want to take a look at the photo that Donald Trump posted just recently about Roe, and then some news he shared about the files. Donald Trump wrote of Khanna earlier today, a Democrat, don't allow this lying sleazebag on Fox News. And it's Roe, and I guess he's a vampire in sheep's clothing. It's a little intense, and Khanna wrote, congratulations on your wedding, Donald Trump Jr. Sorry for distracting your dad with this important work. Oh, it's pretty funny. This is just good stuff from Roe. And he continued with some important updates about the Epstein files here.
I was Democratic Congressman Khanna of California. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee and the House Armed Services Committee, and he was there today. Congressman Khanna, do you agree with the chairman about this witness?
I agree that she gave very emotional and powerful testimony. I mean, it was horrific what she described in terms of Epstein's abuse. And she did provide 3 individuals, 2 celebrities and one pretty well-known politician who assaulted her. But there's a lot more we need to learn because she was very hesitant to talk about other men who were abusing the young girls. And she felt that that was not something she wanted to address. So I believe we need to call her back to get that information.
There were points during the years of investigation of Jeffrey Epstein where this witness by some prosecutors was considered a possible co-conspirator. Did you get any clarity on that today?
Well, this is one of the reasons she didn't want to answer about other young girls who may have been abused, and she didn't want to implicate herself. My view on this is that people like her who were abused, clearly raped, assaulted by Epstein or others, many of them actually, to protect themselves, ended up recruiting young girls or complying with what Epstein wanted. And I view them far more as victims than as perpetrators. You know, when I brought Haley Robeson to the State of the Union, the Republicans attacked her in some of the most gruesome ways. But she also was someone who was a victim. And some of these women said that they recruited others just to survive. But we need to have sympathy for them. And really, it's the men who abuse these young girls who need to be held to account.
What are the investigative leads that come out of this interview today?
Well, certainly the three people who assaulted her, we need to call them in, have them under oath, and have investigations. The second thing is this just frustration, and I really feel an anger because the survivors know that there are people out there who have committed assault, committed rape, and the Department of Justice is doing nothing. And for Todd Blanche to sit there in the Senate with Senator Van Hollen and to say that he's met with the survivors when that was a lie, and to say that he's not pursuing a single investigation, that is really upsetting. And so we need to have this witness come back and also talk about some of the other abusers and really push the Department of Justice to investigate.
Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We need to keep asking questions, and the media needs to do its job. And if Donald Trump is going to silence them around every corner, they should only get louder. I can promise you we are going to do so on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you.